My next guest is asking what the DHS has dug up about the incident. Former State Department official and executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online, Mike Benz. Mike, it's great to see you. It seems to be this great unanswered question. I'm not even sure it's deserved enough or it has earned the adequate amount of curiosity and questions about who is Thomas Crooks and what motivated him. And to this day, 1 year later, there certainly aren't answers.
Well, there are haunting questions about the use of the federal government, in particular the FBI and DHS, in cultivating informants or sources that then go on to commit crimes that the same agencies recruiting them failed to stop. And the question is whether they deliberately failed to stop them if they do recruit them in informants. In this case, all of this was in-house at DHS. Secret Service is folded under DHS, and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, is folded under DHS. So if there were some sort of federal government touch points in terms of this assassination attempt, it could have all been kept in a very closed loop in-house. And this is important because in the January 6th case, we now know that there were more than twice as many DHS federal informants in the crowd on January 6th who DHS had recruited through HSI than even the FBI had. So HSI had twice a bigger role in recruiting informants to participate in January 6th than FBI. And you now have, as you mentioned, 43 visits to the same gun range that DHS then used just one day after Crooks had visited. The logs show that on May 22nd, about a month and a half before the shooting, Crooks was there, and the very next day, DHS held a event there and training. If DHS HSI contacts had come in contact with Crooks at that gun range, or in advance of that, and had foreknowledge that Crooks had intended to take a shot, or was talking in a sort of assassination adjacent rhetoric, that could have been pulled off very easily in terms of telling people not to take to the roof, and nobody would have known. The Justice Department wouldn't have known. It could have been all kept in-house. So I think HSI really has to be interrogated on this at a much more intensive level.
Well, whoever Crooks was communicating with, whether in person, it would be pertinent to also know who he was talking with online or with his phone. And what we know about Crooks's past is it seems like a fairly normal childhood up until about a year before the assassination attempt, wherein the fall before the assassination attempt, he starts using private servers, private VPNs. And to this day, we have no answers. Whether or not we're capable, you have a better answer to that than I do, Mike, but we have no answers as to what he was searching, what he was looking for, or for that matter, who he was talking to or who he was communicating with his phone when he was on the roof. He was on his phone reportedly while on the roof of the AGR building in Butler.
Right. And a kid that age, it's very, very rare to have that kind of quality of OPSEC. We know that, for example, we don't even know the names of the apps. There were 3 encrypted apps, chat apps, messaging apps that we're told that he used. Now, we know that the FBI in prior cases has actually told informants or targets to use particular proprietary apps made by the federal government. In fact, the FBI did a major drug bust about a year and a half ago where they basically took down a whole network by getting them to use what they thought was an encrypted chat app that they actually had a backdoor to. And so the question is, if Crooks was cultivated or if he was being monitored or potentially interacted with by federal law enforcement agents, who put him onto that? And I think that the total lack of transparency, it's sort of defying the laws of surveillance state physics. I think most people believe that if federal law enforcement were to get a hold of their phone, that pretty much everything could be scraped from it. You don't know if, for example, in this case, he was communicating with a foreign government. This, to me, may go beyond, FBI, DHS. We know that the NSA is able to crack these sorts of things. And so it's all very strange to me. But again, there's another whistleblower report that I believe Josh Hawley's whistleblower mentioned, which was that HSI agents kind of mysteriously replaced a fair number of Secret Service agents that day because Secret Service was said to be split between the NATO summit and Jill Biden being away, and that Secret Service had denied, I think, about 10 requests for additional security from the Trump campaign prior to the shooting. And so it is just a strange confluence of variables that just do not sit well for the American public. And I think that there should be a sort of transparency task force so that these specific questions about HSI and the potential recruiting as an informant, about the contents of the phone and the like, can be answered on a more ongoing basis.
Well, the questions need to be asked no matter where the answers lead, whether or not they are to the DHS or to a foreign government or whether they may be, where 1 year later the American public has a right to know who was Thomas Crooks and what motivated him to attempt the life on the president. We appreciate you addressing this conversation today, Mike Benz.
Thanks, Will.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.